couple of different things along with the homily. The first is that an announcement, a reminder more, that in the province of Los Angeles, of which we are a part, New Year's Day is not a holy day of obligation. It is a holy day, but not one of obligation. Okay, so just as a reminder, I know in a lot of Catholic calendars it says Holy Day of Obligation. That's because most of them are printed in New York. Okay, and most of the dioceses of the East Coast, it is a holy day. But once you move out of the East Coast, it's not a holy day. It's an important day. It starts off a new year. It's the feast of the Solemnity of Mary, the World Day of prayer for peace, but not a day of obligation. There will be Mass here at 9 o'clock, as always. The second thing is, I love the reading that we had, the first reading that we had today. I wrote to the seminarians today, and I edited the first reading. And I said, God sets a vocation director in honor over his seminarians. He who reveres his vocation director will have a long life. And he who obeys his vocation director brings comfort to the bishop. My children, take care of your vocation director when he is old. Grieve him not as long as he lives. And they kind of went on like that. Every now and then it's good for us to remember those sorts of things. They need to remember it too. But in terms of the homily, in the opening prayer, if you were listening, it prayed that, in the Holy Family, we have examples of family values, of the way families should live together, which I find very strange, because according to Scripture, Mary was a single mother, or she was unmarried when she was known to be pregnant. We don't have Joseph in the picture for very long. Certainly by the time that Jesus begins working publicly, he's gone, which means Mary needed to depend on him, because according to Hebrew law, she had no rights whatsoever. She was out on the street. She needed to be dependent on a man in order to live. So we have a very different set of family structure here. But in Paul's letter to the Colossians, he tells them, I think, what you and I are looking for and what the church reminds us about in terms of family as we are called to live. Brothers and sisters, put on as God's chosen ones, holy and beloved, heartfelt compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Bear with one another, forgive one another. If one has a grievance, forgive as the Lord has forgiven you. Above all, put on love, that is the bond of perfection. In these days when, in our culture, there are so many cultural wars over what is family, what isn't family, what are the family values. We stand for family values. Which family values? What family values? You and I need to stand for the values of the gospel, as we hear Paul outline it in today's letter to the Colossians. If you and I, in our families, can live those values strongly, definitively, setting them as an example for our children and our grandchildren, we will be holy families. We will be the families that we are called to be. To grow up in a context where compassion, humility, forgiveness is the mode of action, where we reach out to others in that sense of compassion. To be able to do that in family. We're just celebrating Christmas right now. How many of you were not able to gather the whole family around the table because there are relatives that feel unwanted? How many of you still hold grudges against relatives? I used to live with a guy who would speak about things and you would think, my God, this happened last week, 35 and 40 years ago. And we keep that pain alive. We cherish that pain. And the only one who suffers is us. Because the other person simply isn't feeling it. To live as the Holy Family lived, according to the letter of Paul to to the Colossians in heartfelt love that demonstrates itself in compassion, in mercy, forgiveness, and in understanding. These are the values that mark us as a Christian Catholic family. These are the values that our church stands for. These are the values that we need also, not only to stand for, but to demonstrate. So that people, when they look at us, will say, see how these Christians love one another. Their faith must be real. Their God must be strong. Merry Christmas.